Hi everyone, I'm back with another Diablo 4 video, and today I want to talk about gems and also runes in Diablo 4. So if you're already familiar with Diablo 3, you will notice, or Diablo 2 as well, or many other RPGs that have this kind of system where you can put more items into your already existing equipment to make them stronger or get some extra effects or stats. So this returns in Diablo 4 in the case of sockets in your items. And we can have an example here. So this is a screenshot from the Diablo 4 press kit. And if you look here, this is the rogue equipment, for example. And we have these diamond shaped like icons here on top of the gear. And those are the sockets and they are filled with gems. You see here they have different colors, so there's different types of gems. You can also see them here in the inventory. They are grayed out right now. Usually they look a bit brighter because they are in like this vendor interface. But yeah, we have like diamonds, there's emeralds, rubies, sapphire, topaz, skulls, and amethyst. And these are all the different types that are in the game, and they all have different effects based on their level. So there's different ranks for each of them, and also where you put them. So in the weapons, you have a different effect than on your armor, and those have a different effect than the jewelry. So this is a very straightforward system that comes back from the other Diablo games, and you can see the exact effects here. So if we look at, for example, the amethyst, they're always like themed around like certain effects. So most of the time they give you like a certain resistance when you put them into your jewelry, so your rings and your amulets. So in the case of amethyst, it's like purple, it gives you shadow res. Emeralds is green, gives you poison res. Ruby is red, gives you fire res. Topaz is yellow, gives you lightning res. Sapphire is blue, gives you cold res. And then you have diamond that gives you all res, but at a lower value. And you have the skull that gives you armor. So you see they always have like this kind of like, yeah, systematic stat allocation, so to say. But in general, especially the offensive effects, the weapon effects are kind of the interesting ones here. So the jewelry is always like defensive. There's not really that much, to add here. And also the armor slots. Here you get a bit of life, for example, for the ruby. You get damage reduction while control impaired, or damage reduction while fortified, or you have barrier potency. So you always have like some kind of like extra defensive, like more conditional effect in the armor slots. But the weapon slots are probably the most interesting ones because they allow you to customize your build in the most impactful way, so to say. So you see this here, for example, you have emeralds, which I found to be quite useful when I played. So they give you damage to elites. So this is something that is generally useful for pretty much anyone. So elites are the most difficult part of the game. And for example, bosses count as elites as well. So you always have the extra damage when you need it the most. So this is a very powerful gem to put into your weapon sockets most of the time. But there are also others. So for example, this amethyst here that gives you like just flat like damage over time, which works against everything. So this works for elites and for trash monsters, and those are also not negligible. So you could definitely think about putting this into your weapon, depending on how much damage over time you have already. And this is something that you don't get that much of, I believe. So this might also still be worth a consideration, depending on, for example, how much single target damage your build can bring, or how much you struggle against elites. You can choose one or the other. But there's other cool effects like this resource generation. This is also something I really liked. For example, when playing Rogue. Rogue is a class where you spend and have to gain resources quite fast. And this ruby in a weapon definitely helps. So you can just put them into all of your weapons and you have like plus 30% resource generation. It is a very noticeable effect. It allows you to spam your abilities. And there's also some other interesting effects like lucky hit chance, for example, here on the topaz. I explained this in my last video what lucky hit chance is. Effectively, this is like the chance to trigger certain effects, and you can boost that with lucky hit chance, for example, from topazes. So this is also something that we're probably going to see used for like certain build archetypes that are based around these trigger effects. Then we had the sapphire I mentioned. Critical hit damage is always good, and you don't get that much of it, so any kind of percent value is good. And here's diamond with ultimate damage. So this seems to be like the weakest of the offensive effects in my opinion. All of the ultimate skills that I've tried were never really like that much of like a DPS skill. And I think this value is simply way too low, and ultimates need like a lot of help in general. but it's also kind of interesting that you could potentially make a build around like ultimate abilities as kind of like a big burst of damage. Or in some cases, you also have cooldown reset mechanics for your ultimate skills, and you can use them way more frequently to actually try to use them like pretty much all the time. So it will be interesting to see if you're gonna see builds based around these kind of diamonds here. And lastly, here we have the skull, which I found to be very useful, for example, especially in jewelry with the armor. So armor, as opposed to all resistances from the diamond, works against physical damage as well. And I found that the values were generally close enough. So it was like a bit worse for like the fire, cold, etc. But you also gain physical damage reduction, which is quite significant. And I was using jewelry skulls basically all the time, while I was never considering them for the other slots. But it is relatively niche, but I could also see at least they go maybe like a skull or two socketed into an item in a weapon, for example, being used. Life on kill is also something that might be very useful because healing in general is a rather rare resource. You have a healing potion, and for most builds, this is pretty much it actually. So you don't really have a lot of effects that heal you, that have like life per hit, life per second. There are certain rolls you can get on an item, but they're all very, very small. So most of the healing comes from you pressing the healing potion button. Now, obviously, all of these are just pre-beta values, and there might be some adjustments to this. There might even be some changes to what these effects actually do. So, maybe some of them will be changed to something else. But for now, we can say that there's definitely like a reason to use pretty much any of these different gems in your gear, I believe. So some are generally more useful than others, I would say. For example, the resource generation or the bonus damage to elites, they are more universal. But there are definitely reasons to have any of them in a build at some point, I believe, depending on what exactly you're trying to specialize in. So that's actually pretty cool. And I can also see people, like, for example, swapping around their jewelry gems to gain a certain resistance that they need to run like a certain nightmare dungeon or like some big uber boss or something that is like heavily focused towards a certain damage type. So there might be certain dungeons where you have like lots of poisonous, like, spiders or whatever. You're gonna maybe socket some extra emeralds, or you have, some kind of like fire themed dungeon or so where you might swap to rubies. Now, personally, I don't really expect to do this like often, but for like the very high-end content, this is a possibility. But the good part is that in general, you can also just use these resistance gems to balance out your gear overall. So for example, when you have rings on your character, they always come with 2 different resistances out of the 5 total that exist. And you might end up with, like 1 of each on your rings, and then 1 that is a bit weak, and you can maybe throw in like a ruby to balance out your resistances in general to be protected against everything. And you can also see that these ranks improve the values of these gems quite significantly. So this is the crude ruby, for example. This is the first type that you find at like level 15 or 10 or something like that. And then you get the chipped rubies later. They're going to be like, 20 plus or so. And then there's going to be like various extra types, probably like 5 or 6 tiers. And these values actually scale up quite significantly. You see this here, for example, it goes from 6% to 7%, and it's going to be like 8, 9, 10% resource generation per ruby that you have in your weapons socketed. And you can actually socket quite a lot of these gems in some cases. So if we go back to this rogue example here, you have up to 4 weapon sockets, so you can have 40% resource generation just like this from your weapons, or you can have, for example, 50% elite damage and min-max your gear into a certain direction that you like more. And in the case of, for example, barbarians, you have a lot of weapons. You have the arsenal system, you have 2 two-handed weapons and 2 one-handed weapons. So you have the same as a rogue, but another 2 sockets that can go into another two-handed weapon. So you can have a total of 6 weapon sockets, for example. So you can actually do pretty crazy stuff with those gems. If you're curious about the maximum number of sockets that you can have on your gear, so one-handed weapons have 1 socket, then helms have 1 socket, and all of the jewelry has 1 socket maximum, and you have 2 sockets on chests, pants, and two-handed weapons, and none on the boots and the gloves. So this is how that works. And these sockets in general are also kind of like outside of the ordinary stat rolls that you can have on an item. So if you look at an item, It can have up to 4 affixes if it's non-unique. And then you can have a legendary affix, for example. And it can have a socket on top of it. You see here, this is a legendary crossbow. It has 2 sockets. And these sockets are always like extra stats that are outside of the regular stat rolls. And an item can either come with a socket or not, or it can come with 2 in some cases. And you can also go and add extra sockets to your items. So you don't have to be sad when you find a really good drop that does not have the sockets that you want. You can go to the jeweler and add extra sockets, but it comes at a pretty heavy cost. So you need a certain material for that. It's called scattered prism that you can only get from world bosses and from treasure goblins. So this is a quite rare material that you can kind of target farm, but it's also something you don't want to waste because you have to go out of your way in general to acquire more of them. So I found when I was playing the game that especially early on in the progression, sockets were quite impactful because the stat rolls on your items are quite low. So, you know, on like level 20 or something, you have items that give you like, 3% attack speed here, maybe like 2% armor there, maybe like 6% movement speed here. So these kind of values, these kind of ranges that we're looking at. And you see here, for example, this 6% resource generation or 7%. You find a crossbow that has 2 sockets. And like I would almost always just equip it if I didn't have a weapon that already had sockets, and no matter the stats basically. So they're quite good early on, and I guess over time the sockets become like a bit less impactful and more of a bonus thing. But as I mentioned, if you stack them up in the end game, I guess you're gonna definitely see some noticeable impact. And of course you have your trusty jeweler who not only unsockets your items for you if you want to switch it around or want to take back the gems, but he also adds the sockets for you, as I mentioned. So you go to the jeweler to add a socket with a scattered prism, or you can also craft certain gems, so you can like upgrade them to higher ranks. So if you have enough, I think it's always like a 3-to-1 recipe. So I need 3 crude for 1 chipped, and then 3 chipped for 1 whatever. So it goes like that. Just for completion's sake, I also want to mention the jewelry upgrades here. So if you have rings and amulets, you can go to the jeweler and upgrade those. So this works similar to the blacksmith, where you can go and bring your armor or your weapons, and basically it just improves the stats a little bit, makes them higher item power. You can do this a few times depending on what kind of rank of item you have. So it goes up to like 5 times, I believe, or 4 times. So you just get like a bit of extra power there. There's also another use for the jeweler. And lastly, I want to talk about the runes in Diablo 4. So there's a question I've gotten quite often recently. And we know this rune system here that was, I think, previewed at BlizzCon 2019 when they revealed the game. And we saw these like images here and like some examples of different runes and how they work. So this rune system was going to work with 1 condition rune plus 1 effect rune. And then you would combine the 2 in a 2-socket item to get a certain effect under a certain condition. So you see this here in this example. This is what they previewed like years ago. But in the game, in Diablo 4 right now, we do not actually have runes. So we know from the dev interviews that they are not coming for release, but they are coming down the line. So we're probably going to see like some seasons down the line, like some big update or so that's going to introduce them. And they said that they want to like just redo the system, maybe iterate on it or something like that. But we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. It might be something like this. It might be maybe more like Diablo 2, where you have like these runes and they're just like kind of special in what they do or in what stats they give. Maybe they have certain procs. I'm pretty sure it's likely that we're going to see a return of rune words as well at some point. We have unique items in the game in Diablo 4. And I would not be surprised to see these, runes becoming a quite big part of the progression and of the gearing process, and like potential side grade 2 unique items in the end game and these kind of things. And to be honest, looking at those rune effects that we have here, I'm not surprised they didn't make it into the game. I think that most of these would be absolutely broken OP looking at what they do, because especially the condition runes are like basically very easy to actually activate. And some of these like numbers and stuff like this, I mean, obviously this is like years ago with like a very early state of the game, but from what I've seen in the game now with 2022 state or 2023, like that would be bonkers. So I don't really expect to see anything like this. And if you see this kind of condition plus effect system that they have previewed here, I think it would be way nerfed, or it would have cooldowns, or it would have at least lower values. So yeah. But on the other hand, this could definitely be a great addition into the game later down the line as like some end game progression system maybe that, you know, allows you to go even further with your character, and, you know, maybe you unlock them in like, you know, the very late stages when you're level 100 already and you have defeated like basically everything else, and you can like really boost your character to the maximum or so. But yeah, this is all speculation at this point. In any case, this is it for the video. So hope you got a good overview of what the gems do in the game, how the jeweler works in the game, and also, yeah, maybe there's gonna be some cool stuff to come with the runes. So personally, I'm looking forward to that. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.